Hello all, and welcome to a quick video on one of our teaching and learning principles. So obviously these are our 9 principles. These are our kind of core values in terms of teaching and learning, and what we're going to do in this video is just unpick one of these in a bit more detail. And I'm going to particularly focus this morning on adaptive teaching and the concept of scaffolding. So we know as a truly comprehensive school, what we want for our students is for all our learners to be successful. And there's lots and lots of research on how to ensure that all learners are successful. We know, and we've unpicked it before, that in the Education Endowment Foundation research, it talked about direct instruction being a good way of ensuring all learners are successful. And there's a good research piece, if anybody wants to read it, on why minimal guidance during instruction doesn't work and how actually that minimal guidance widens gaps. And we don't want to widen gaps, we want to obviously try and close gaps so that all of our learners are successful. And one of those effective ways of trying to close gaps is through scaffolding. So what I'm going to do in this session is just very quickly highlight 8 ways that we could scaffold in the classroom. I know that when we talk about scaffolding, sometimes that can be rather lost in terms of its meaning and what it actually means, and what we don't want necessarily is teachers to spend hours and hours making all these fantastically differentiated worksheets. And that's a big reason obviously they've got rid of this term differentiation, because they were setting different endpoints for students, and actually adaptive teaching is all about supporting students to get to the same endpoint. So when we're talking about scaffolding, that's why we're talking about it. So just to re-emphasize that idea, obviously scaffolding therefore is effectively the support system. What support system are we putting in place for students so that we all get to that kind of intended learning? And we know that obviously some students will need more support, some students will need less support. It might be due to their prior knowledge, for example. If they've got less prior knowledge, then they'll probably need more support in trying to get to that intended learning. But as a truly comprehensive school, and a school that wants all learners to be successful, we need to really think about that support we're offering. So what might this look like in the classroom? So here are 8 ways that we might scaffold in the classroom. So the first way is through modelling. We know that what effective teachers do is they use this tool to try and problem solve by walking students through the steps or talking them through the process. That thinking out loud is a really useful way of modelling your thinking. Equally, and we've talked about this before, the use of visualizers, which are now very common in our school, are a good way to model to students how to solve particular things, how to do particular things. So modeling is a good way to scaffold to ensure that all learners are at that same point. Talk. We know that, and we've done the research, and I know obviously we've got an inquiry group at the moment who are focusing on talk, that talk is a very, very useful learning tool. So we want to use things that are good for learning. So giving students time to reflect on their learning, a simple activity like think, pair, share, where students are actually talking about it and rehearsing that knowledge, is a really excellent way to check for understanding and obviously to help develop that understanding. Prior knowledge. Now, again, this is something that's come up in our professional development before. If we're integrating new knowledge or trying to teach something new, what we need to do first is obviously to activate that prior knowledge that students have. Students don't come to lessons as blank slates. They come with a variety of different knowledge, a variety of different experience, and actually we need to utilize that experience and we need to utilize that knowledge if we're going to successfully integrate that new piece of information. So checking for understanding prior knowledge is really important. Chunking, so breaking things down into small manageable chunks. We have done lots of work on the limits of working memory, and we know that obviously if we can break things down into small incremental steps, they are far more likely to be successful. Graphic organizers. Visual tools are an excellent way because of the nature of our working memory and because of the limitations of it. If we're trying to introduce an idea that is quite an abstract idea, having a kind of visual representation of that abstract idea can help learners better understand that concept. The use of vocabulary. Students, if we're doing a piece of reading, before approaching it, what we might do is we would break down the words that are going to come up. We'd check for obviously understanding, particularly on words or phrases that we think are going to create challenges for students. So really thinking about what we offer before is really important. Feedback. So giving students tips and tricks while they're working, so going around circulating the classroom, part of your guided practice, and making sure that you're providing instant feedback is a really good way to obviously help scaffold the learning for students. And finally, questioning. So questioning for me always is one of the most powerful tools we have in our kit, and actually checking for understanding and trying to uncover gaps is a really good way to scaffold. So when we're talking about scaffolding, what we want to say is obviously we're not just talking about creating thousands of worksheets, thousands of scaffold worksheets. What we're talking about are these things here, these steps here: modelling, talk, prior knowledge, chunking, organisers, vocabulary, feedback and questioning are all useful parts of scaffolding. So trying to integrate as many of these into your day-to-day lessons is really useful for helping to close attainment gaps. Okay, thank you.